Welcome to the deep dive. We take complex source material, boil it down, and give you those essential high-impact insights you need.
And today, wow, we're tackling something huge.
Right.
We're looking at the very mechanics of life, starting
Yeah.
tiny, like subatomic tiny, and scaling all the way up to, well, the engine of the whole biosphere.
Yeah, the sources you provided cover a lot: atoms, energy, cells, and that absolutely critical process, photosynthesis. Our goal isn't just definitions, though.
No,
We want to connect the dots for you, like really show you quickly, clearly, how something as small as a proton ends up dictating the massive energy flows that keep everything alive, including you.
exactly. Think of it like getting the master blueprint for biology, how life sustains itself, starting right from the ground up, the
Yeah.
raw materials.
Okay, so let's start right there. At the most basic level, everything we are, everything tangible that takes up space and has mass, that's matter.
Mm-hmm.
And matter is built from elements, those fundamental substances you can't break down any further. What always gets me is how simple life's basic toolkit is. Like, there are 92 elements out there naturally, but life, it mainly uses fewer than 30 of them.
It's pretty focused, yeah. And those elements are defined by their atoms. So if you peek inside an atom, you've got the nucleus in the center. That's where the positive protons plus one live, along with the neutral neutrons.
And buzzing around.
Buzzing around are the negative electrons. moving away.
No, what's really key here isn't just that structure, but the little variations. The number of protons tells you what element it is that's fixed. But if you change the number of neutrons...
Then you get an isotope.
Yeah.
That's right. Take carbon, for example. Standard carbon, carbon-12, because it's got 6 protons, 6 neutrons. Pretty standard.
Okay.
But add 2 neutrons, you get carbon-14. Still 6 protons, so it's still carbon chemically, but it's heavier. And crucially, it's now a radioisotope. It's unstable. It decays over time.
And that decay, that instability, that's where the science gets really practical, right? That's carbon dating.
Exactly. When something's alive, it's taking in carbon-14 from the environment, so it has a certain ratio.
Like breathing it in, eating it.
Yep. But when it dies, it stops taking it in. And that carbon-14 starts to decay into nitrogen-14. The clock starts ticking.
And we know how fast that clock ticks.
We know the rate precisely. The half-life, the time it takes for half of it to decay for carbon-14 is 5,730 years. So scientists measure how much is left.
Do some math.
Do some math, and they can figure out how old things like fossils or, say, ancient fabrics are, up to around 50,000 years old. It's amazing. Connects physics right to history.
Okay, so atoms exist, but they don't usually stay alone. They combine, they form chemical bonds to make molecules. 3 main types holding things together. First up, ionic bonds.
Ionic bonds. Yeah, these are pretty straightforward. Basically, one atom gives up an electron, becomes positive, a cation. Another atom accepts it, becomes negative, an anion.
And opposites attract.
Opposites attract. They stick together like little magnets. Simple charge attraction.
Okay, then the big one for biology, covalent bonds.
Ah, yes. Covalent. Here, atoms share electrons. And the sources really stress this. These are the strongest and most common bonds in living things.
Why is that strength so important?
Well, think about it. Your body is mostly water. These bonds don't easily fall apart in water. So the molecules that make up your structure proteins, DNA, they stay intact. They don't just dissolve away.
Right, that makes sense for structure. But wait a second. If they're so strong, how do we get energy from food? Don't we need to break those strong bonds?
Excellent question. Yes, we do. But we have specialized tools for that, enzymes, which we'll get to. They help break those bonds in a very controlled way to release the stored energy. But for just holding things together, covalent is king.
Okay, but sometimes the sharing isn't quite equal in those covalent bonds, right?
Exactly. Sometimes one atom pulls harder on the shared electrons than the other. We call that electronegativity. Oxygen is a classic example. It's an electron hog.
So it pulls the electrons closer.
It does. And this creates what's called a polar covalent bond. The oxygen end gets a slight negative charge, and the other end, often hydrogen, gets a slight positive charge. The whole molecule is neutral overall, but it has charged ends, like poles.
And that slight charge, that's like the secret sauce for water, isn't it? It leads to hydrogen bonds.
Absolutely. Hydrogen bonds aren't about sharing or transferring electrons within a molecule. They're weaker attractions between adjacent polar molecules, like between water molecules. It's that slight positive hydrogen on one water molecule being attracted to the slight negative oxygen on a neighbor.
It's like a weak glue connecting them.
A weak but absolutely essential glue. The sources are clear. Without hydrogen bonds, water wouldn't stick together like it does. It would just be a gas at room temperature.
Wow. Okay, so no liquid water without them.
No liquid water, no life as we know it.
So let's dig into that. This polarity, these hydrogen bonds, they give water four really unique properties that basically enable life on Earth.
Property number one, that polarity itself. It makes water an amazing solvent. Anything else that's charged or polar, think salts, sugars, dissolves easily in it. We call those hydrophilic, water-loving.
Which is why our blood can carry dissolved nutrients all over the body.
Precisely. Transport depends on it. Second property, temperature stabilization.
Right. Water resists changing temperature.
It does. All those hydrogen bonds are constantly breaking and reforming. To raise the temperature of water, you have to put in a lot of energy just to break those bonds first. And when water cools, it releases a lot of heat as new bonds form.
So it acts like a buffer.
A massive buffer. It moderates temperatures inside organisms, keeps oceans from boiling or freezing instantly, stabilizes global climate. It's huge.
Okay, third property, cohesion.
Cohesion. That's water molecules sticking to each other. Thanks again to those hydrogen bonds. This creates surface tension.
Like how a water strider bug can walk on a pond. Or you can carefully fill a glass just over the brim.
Exactly that dome shape. That's cohesion. And closely related is number four, adhesion.
Which is water sticking to other things.
Right. Sticking to other surfaces, especially polar ones. Think water clogging up the inside of a glass tube or a paper towel wicking up a spill.
And in nature, climbing up plant stems.
Absolutely critical. Cohesion pulls the water column along. Adhesion helps it stick to the sides of the plant's vessels. That's how water gets from the roots of a giant redwood all the way to the top leaves, defying gravity.
Incredible. Okay, water is the stage. Now the actors, the building materials, and it really comes down to one element, carbon.
Carbon. Life is carbon-based for a very good reason. A carbon atom can form four stable covalent bonds. Four.
Which means it can connect to lots of other atoms, including other carbons.
Exactly. It can form long chains, branched chains, rings. It's like the ultimate molecular Lego brick. This allows it to create the huge, complex molecules needed for life. We call these organic molecules, basically, molecules containing carbon bonded to hydrogen. Methane, CH4, is the simplest.
And it's wild that pretty much all the structure, function, energy storage, everything in a cell boils down to just four main types of these organic molecules. We got to unpack these.
You do. Let's start with carbohydrates. Think sugars and starches. Their main jobs are providing quick, easy-to-access energy. Glucose is the classic example.
But they do structure too, right?
Yep. Cellulose, which makes plant cell walls rigid, is a carbohydrate. So energy and structure.
Okay. Next, lipids, fats, oils, waxes.
The defining feature here is that they're hydrophobic. They don't mix with water, water-fearing.
Like oil and vinegar dressing.
Perfect example. This makes them great for long-term energy storage. It's more compact than carbs and for insulation. Think blubber on a whale.
But the really big job for lipids.
The cell membrane. Every single cell is enclosed by a barrier made primarily of lipids, phospholipids specifically. This barrier controls what gets in and out. No lipid membrane, no cell. It's that fundamental.
Got it. Third class, proteins. These seem to do, well, almost everything.
They're incredibly diverse. Proteins are polymers, long chains made of building blocks called amino acids. They fold into complex 3D shapes, and that shape determines their functions.
And the functions are?
Oh, everything. Structural components like collagen, signaling molecules like hormones, transport channels. But maybe most importantly, they act as enzymes.
Ah, the catalysts.
The biological catalysts. Enzymes are proteins that speed up specific chemical reactions, sometimes by millions of times, without being used up in the process.
So all the chemical reactions happening in our cells constantly, metabolism relies on enzymes to make them happen fast enough.
Absolutely. Think of a reaction needing a certain amount of energy to get started, like pushing a boulder uphill before it can roll down. An enzyme basically lowers that hill, making the reaction happen much, much easier and faster. Life couldn't exist at the speed it does without them.
Okay, and the final class, nucleic acids, DNA and RNA.
The information molecules. DNA holds the genetic blueprint. It's that famous double helix structure. And it contains all the instructions for building and operating the entire organism, mostly by dictating which proteins get made.
And RNA helps carry out those instructions.
Generally speaking, yes. It plays various roles in translating the DNA code into actual proteins.
So these four molecule types build the fundamental unit of life. The cell.
Exactly. Which brings us to the unified cell theory. Simple but profound. All living things are made of cells. The cell is the basic unit of life, and all new cells come from pre-existing cells.
And when we look at cells, there's a major split, right? Prokaryotes versus eukaryotes.
A huge evolutionary divergence. Prokaryotes, bacteria, and archaea came first. They're typically much smaller, structurally simpler.
What makes them simple?
The main thing is what they lack. They don't have a true nucleus to contain their DNA. The DNA just kind of floats in a region called the nucleoid, and they don't have those internal membrane-bound compartments called organelles.
Okay, so contrast that with eukaryotes. That's us, animals, plants, fungi, protists.
Right. Eukaryotes are generally much larger, and their defining feature is complexity through compartmentalization. They do have a true nucleus protecting the DNA, and they have various specialized organelles, each wrapped in its own membrane, doing specific jobs.
Like little organs within the cell.
Exactly. You have mitochondria, the powerhouses generating energy. You have the endoplasmic reticulum involved in making proteins and lipids, the Golgi apparatus for processing and packaging.
That compartmentalization must allow for more complex functions.
Absolutely. It allows for specialization and efficiency that prokaryotes just can't match. It was a major leap, enabling the evolution of larger multicellular life.
And plants have a few extra bits compared to animal cells.
They do. Plant cells have a rigid cell wall outside their membrane for support. They usually have a large central vacuole for storing water and maintaining pressure. And critically for our story, they have chloroplasts.
The site of photosynthesis, which brings us nicely to energy flow.
Perfect transition. Because everything a cell or an organism does, moving, growing, building molecules, just staying organized, takes energy. The study of how energy flows through living systems is bioenergetics.
And all the chemical reactions involved, collectively.
That's metabolism, the sum total of everything happening chemically inside a cell or organism.
And this whole energy game has rules. The laws of thermodynamics.
The fundamental rules. The first law is basically the conservation of energy. Energy can't be created or destroyed, only changed from one form to another.
Like sunlight energy being converted into chemical energy in a plant.
Perfect example. Or chemical energy in food being converted into kinetic energy when you move. The total amount stays the same.
Okay, but the second law. This one feels counterintuitive for life. It says energy transfers aren't perfect.
They're inherently inefficient. Every time energy is transferred or transformed, some of it degrades into a less useful form, usually heat, that disperses into the surroundings.
So things tend towards disorder.
Exactly. The second law introduces entropy, which is a measure of randomness or disorder in a system. And the law states that the total entropy of the universe is always increasing. Things naturally tend to break down, spread out, become more chaotic.
But wait, living things are incredibly ordered. Complex structures, functioning systems. How do we exist if the universe is always running downhill towards chaos?
Ah, you've hit the core challenge. Life seems to defy the second law, but it doesn't. Living organisms are islands of low-entropy, highly ordered systems. But they can only maintain that order by constantly taking in energy from their surroundings.
And using it to build and maintain complexity.
Right. And in the process of doing that, they actually increase the entropy of their surroundings by releasing heat and waste products. So the total entropy still goes up, satisfying the law. But life maintains its local order by paying an energy cost.
So we need a constant input of energy just to fight off that natural tendency towards disorder.
Constant input. Without it, the organization breaks down very quickly.
And that energy comes in different forms. Kinetic, potential.
Yeah, kinetic is the energy of motion. Potential energy is stored, energy stored due to position, or more relevant here, within the structure of molecules.
That's chemical energy, right? Stored in the bonds.
Exactly. It's the potential energy locked inside those covalent bonds in molecules like glucose or fats. When enzymes help break those bonds during metabolism, that stored energy is released, and the cell can capture it to do work.
Which finally brings us full circle, back to the ultimate source of that usable chemical energy for almost all life on Earth. Photosynthesis.
The engine. Photosynthesis is the process that captures light energy from the sun and converts it into chemical energy stored mainly in the bonds of carbohydrate molecules, sugars.
And it doesn't just provide energy, it releases the oxygen we breathe.
A rather vital byproduct, yes. Directly or indirectly, almost all life depends on the energy captured by photosynthesis.
This divides life into the feeders and the fed, essentially.
You could say that. You have the autotrophs, the cell feeders. They make their own food. Plants, algae, some bacteria. The ones using light are photoautotrophs.
And then there's everyone else. Heterotrophs, the other feeders, animals, fungi, us. We have to eat other organisms to get our energy and carbon.
Right. And even if you eat, say, a steak from a cow, the energy in that steak ultimately came from the grass the cow ate, and the grass got it from the sun via photosynthesis. It all traces back.
Where does this magic happen? In the chloroplasts.
Primarily in the chloroplasts, those organelles we mentioned, found mainly in plant leaves. The process needs three main ingredients, the reactants: sunlight, carbon dioxide, CO2 from the air, and water, H2O from the soil.
And what comes out? The products?
Oxygen, O2, released into the atmosphere, and those energy-rich carbohydrate molecules like glucose, C6H12O6, that's the food for the plant, and eventually for the rest of us.
Is it one simple step? Light plus CO2 plus water most sugar plus O2?
No. It's actually quite complex, happening in two main stages. First are the light-dependent reactions. This is where chlorophyll and other pigments inside the chloroplasts absorb sunlight. That light energy is used to split water molecules.
That's where the oxygen comes from.
That's exactly where the O2 comes from. It's released as a byproduct of splitting water. The energy captured from sunlight is temporarily stored in other molecules.
Okay, stage one. Capture light, split water, release oxygen, store some energy. What's stage two?
Stage 2 is the Calvin cycle. This part doesn't need light directly. It takes the chemical energy captured in stage 1 and uses it to grab CO2 molecules from the atmosphere and fix the carbon,
Thanks.
meaning it incorporates the carbon from the inorganic CO2 into organic molecules, ultimately assembling them into sugars.
So light reactions make energy carriers and O2. Calvin cycle uses the energy carriers to turn CO2 into sugar.
That's the essence of it, a remarkable biochemical factory.
And the impact. It's hard to overstate, isn't it? 3 huge global consequences.
Absolutely massive. First, O2 creation. Photosynthesis essentially created the oxygen-rich atmosphere we have today, around 21% oxygen.
Which allowed for aerobic respiration, a much more efficient way to get energy.
And critically, it allowed for the formation of the ozone layer, O3, high in the atmosphere, which shields the Earth's surface from harmful ultraviolet radiation from the sun. Life on land likely wouldn't be possible without it.
Okay, oxygen and ozone shield. Second big impact.
The energy foundation. It converts unusable sunlight into usable chemical energy. This energy forms the base of almost every food web on the planet. With very few exceptions, like deep-sea vent ecosystems, all surface life runs on solar energy captured by photosynthesis.
It powers the whole show. And third,
Carbon fixation. This might be the most profound one. It takes carbon atoms from an inorganic gas, CO2, and builds them into the organic molecules of life, sugars first.
and those sugars can then be used to build everything else.
Exactly. The carbon fixed into sugar can be rearranged and used as the backbone to build lipids, proteins, nucleic acids, all complex molecules that make up living cells. It's the process that takes atmospheric carbon and turns it into us.
Wow. So we've gone from the charge on a proton influencing how water behaves, all the way up to leaves capturing sunlight to build the molecules that fuel the entire planet.
It's an incredible chain of cause and effect, all interconnected, from subatomic properties to global cycles.
It really puts things in perspective.
And that unifying theme, maybe, is the fight against disorder. Everything we talked about, the stability of water from hydrogen bonds, the energy stored in covalent bonds, the complex machinery of the chloroplast, it's all evolved as mechanisms to capture energy and use it to build and maintain order, to push back against that relentless second law of thermodynamics.
A constant battle to keep the system running.
A constant influx of energy required just to stay organized, just to stay alive.
Okay, so let's leave our listeners with this thought. We just talked about carbon fixation photosynthesis, taking CO2 from the air and turning it into sugars, the building blocks of life. Consider this. Every single carbon atom that makes up the proteins, the lipids, the very DNA in your body right now, was, at some point, floating freely in the atmosphere as part of a CO2 molecule.
Yeah.
It was captured by a plant or algae or cyanobacteria, fixed into an organic molecule, passed up the food chain, and eventually became part of you. You are literally built from thin air, powered by sunlight captured long ago. Something to think about.